Hi, welcome to this episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee, and I have another meat teaching for today. So I've been studying, eating, digesting meat for years and years and years, and I have been on a quest. I have had a presupposition in my head, and I feel like, is this what the text is saying? I have and I'm at the point, hey, that's what it's saying. I'm finally at the place where I feel very confident, not in me, but in what I feel the Ruach HaKodesh has revealed. And so it's all making sense. All the puzzle pieces are falling into place, and I'm really confident that I can disseminate this to a certain extent. I can try to teach this. And this is nothing new under the sun. This has been known. It's been known by our patriarchs, our ancients, our sages, our prophets. But it has sort of been lost. And we are in a time of restoration. So I've been through all this. I want to say before I really get into the meat teaching, I have, again, like I've been saying, I've started a blog. And this is where I'm going to really try to write down and give a lot more reference and information so people can double check my research. And it's Liz McGee at WordPress.com, I believe. But I'm going to put it in the link. But if you'd like to start there, I have 3 so far, 1, 2, 3. I'm building a case. I'm going very linearly. I'm going very precept by precept, climbing Jacob's ladder. This is all of trying to build my case of my understanding where I am today. So it's pretty exciting to me because, when the world makes sense, it's a much better place to live in. So I want to start with this concept. I just read a great book, and I got a lot of good information out of it. But I want to start by talking, my jump-off theme or verse here is from John 5:26. And it says here, very familiar verse, it says, "For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself." Okay? Great verse. But what I have this understanding. We're talking on so many levels here. And in my blog, in my first one, I'm trying to build the case that there are many levels. And you have to build precept by precept. You have to start with the literal level. You have to build where it's going you until you can unpack some of the deeper meanings and in the mysteries, the secrets that have been held by the elect for the elect of the last day generation. This is sort of what Enoch is saying. So it's very important that we are at a place now. We can confirm and we can tell the world with boldness and confidence, yeah, this is, and you know what? Our patriarchs knew this all along. There's nothing new under the sun. So life, I want to unpack this word. Now, this is one of my issues. It's not good or bad. But when you deal with an English translation, which has from a Greek translation, which is, okay, and going back to the Hebrew. Hebrew is such a great language, and the one that we should be really going back to and referencing is because the Hebrews usually use, 3, 4, 5 Hebrew words that are used in kind of flushing out a whole, let's say, theological concept or construct, like take the word soul. Or the word life. And this is the same principle, I'll tell you this, when you study the word pneuma, which is my one rabbit trail, when you're studying about the male and the female, which is a concept being unpacked today. Because we only have one word in our Greek. What we have 4 or 5 different nuanced words in the Hebrew, and it's the same thing here. So when you're talking about life, there are a lot of Hebrew words that are used specifically to kind of explain and to flesh out this whole huge thing we call life, all right? So in the Hebrew, so in the New Testament, you basically have the word Zoe. There's 2, and it's root Zoe. It means, yes, life, vitality, animation. It talks about our appetite, our passion, man. I mean, if you look in the Strongs, there's a couple of words. That's fine. But in the Hebrew, they're very specific that we are life as we see it is a progression. Not all life, quote unquote, is the same. You have plant life, but then you have human life, and you really see there's there's kind of a world of difference between the two. All right. And this is where our meat is found when we begin to really unpack these words deeper and find out. So in the Hebrew, you have these words like nefesh for soul life. You have the word che, hey, and I'm not saying that right. I'm going to say che, okay, because that's what the transliteration looks like in English. And it is the word alive. You have the word breath. All right, because what we were just talking about here is the Father has life in himself and he's granted the Son to have life. That's talking about really breath life. Did you know that? All right, so we're talking levels of life here. And everything that is created has life. There's nothing. This universe is so alive. And even want to say rocks. See, this is where life are alive. But you have to understand that their soul life is a whole different category. So what I want is to unpack this concept, all right? Because, we're told today that, atoms and little quarks and things, this is the subatomic world. This is the essence of life. When you get down to it, it's these little atoms and all this little world that swirls around. You know what? They're sort of right, but they're not using, again, correct terminology because the word is life. And I want to read you a couple quotes. And this is what's really important because at the essence, there is the most real and fundamental property in everything that is seen and unseen is called life. And this life is in the Father and it's in the Son. And now this life is in us. So let's unpack a little more what we're talking about. So I said there is something more real. I'm going to read a quote here. There is something more real and fundamental than physicality. It is called, namely, life. Life is the underlying essence of everything, and it is what grants existence to physical matter and animates the bodies of all living creatures through infusing the available physical means. So everything is infused. Everything has this life in it. The soul of life, and this, so it's what I'm telling you, it's not atoms. It's not the smallest building block. The smallest building block of everything is life. That's why our Father he's called the living God, the living Elohim. All right. He has life. He is life. And this essence of himself is in everything that he has created, and there's nothing that has been created that he didn't create. All right, so the soul of life needs the physical body to reveal its ability to vivify, or which is the word to animate or to make alive. Now what I'm going to do is stop here. I'm going to give you, because I'm a visual person and this helped me tremendously, and I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. All right, because this is something, if you can grasp this much, I have my little toys. I've used these before, these little stacking blocks. All right, so I have it this way. These, each one fits inside, because this is actually the greatest way to explain how the structure of the universe works. We have it this way. These guys, remember, you have, and then this one, so these are stacking boxes. These are stacking circles. It's really the circle and the square, so So this one, see, I'm trying to, it fits into this one. See that? This is the process. This is how this life, the essence of Elohim, which is the most hidden, invisible portion of all creation, is put into everything he's created. So it just goes inside. This is called inner space. This is called the kingdom of heaven, which is within. This is what they're trying to tell us. There is, just not everything seen by the visible eye is all there is. There's all this elemental and smaller, deeper, more concentrated life inside of everything. This one I had from another YouTube demonstration, because, but this, let's just say starting here, this is our world. This is our world of what is called physicality. Everything that you can see, taste, and touch. But actually, this world has in its outer clipoth, as it says, really has no life in it. The life is start to find out. The first usage in the Bible where you can really understand is called in living souls. Now, there's a principle here I am going to start to unpack. I hope you're sticking with me because we're doing this visually. Let's just say this is our visible world. This is you and me. We live in this visible. This is Adam. This is us. Because another large principle is nothing in the world is chaotic. So once you establish a template, you can put it, you can just completely put it on top of any other concept and it should fit like a hand in a glove. All right. You cannot put, so in this concept of life, life is always housed. Life always has a structure to it. And it is called a body and it is called a soul. Or in other words, there is always a visible body. So let's just say this is our physical world. This is why, let's just say in the ancients, they call the earth, they kind of Mother Earth. She has a body. This is where this is a philosophy that our ancients have, the patriarchs. And this is a philosophy that actually the ancients have. This is the way they viewed the world, which I believe today is absolutely the correct way. All right. And this is also what I'm explaining to you. This is called the tree of life. All right. So if you wanted to, we're going to unpack the concept that is in the tree of life. That's what it's all. Because life, Yeshua is the tree, right? He is the tree of life. All right. So you always have fundamentally, you have a body, a physicality, something hard that you can see. My body has skin. So we have this outer, I've been through this whole outer physical persona to ourselves. But inside, all this, people think it's all dead space in there, and so is what is called the soul life. Extremely sophisticated, computer programs that run on like this is all the hardware that's on inside the hard drive that has all these little connections and all this stuff is going on into what you see, your printed screen. This is the whole concept of computer animation. This is the whole concept of holograph or a construct, or what's the other word they use today? Hologram and a simulation. All right. There is always a physical, and then there is what's inside animating it. It is really what's inside animating that contains the true life. All right. Now, so you would take this, and if we were to go deeper and deeper, because a lot of times, well, I'm not going to say that. So this goes inside of this one. So if we were to unpack life, our hard physicality, let's go to this, so, and this is the principle, same principle that is behind the Holy of Holies. Every archetype is telling you the same thing. So let's just say we know that Yahweh was inside the Holy of Holies. The whole concept of the temple thing was just nothing more than one big, what do they call it? Object lesson. So then you have, and I think, you have the Holy of Holies, and then you have the next level out, I can't remember, the outer court, but it's not the inner part of the outer court. Then you have the outer court. Then you had the court of the Gentiles, and it fits in it. And then you had the world. See, it's a principle. There's always this whole concept of the S, the L, the life that is in our living Elohim. And he puts this life, again, in its small. That's why so I'm trying to tell you, the atom is not the smallest part. It's the essence of life that is our Elohim, that is in everything. All right. So let me put that aside. And let me just go. So this is why it's important to understand that the soul, every single living category, and this is what I'm saying, it's a very systematic theology. This concept, this is what our brother Judah has kept for us, this ancient, that comes down from Enoch, this ancient, which Adam had, this concept of how the cosmos runs and works, is created, doesn't change. What has changed are the words used, until the point at the end of the age here, our translations are so far, like a game of telephone, so far from the original concept. It's so hard. That's what's taken me years of researching, reading, and digesting, is like, is this right? But be that as it may, the soul of life, all right, which is called our nefesh, all right, which is the living soul, because there's basically two words in Hebrew you really have to kind of flesh out, which is the word, which is nefesh, and the word chay. And these two words, it's living, chay, and soul go together. So this living soul concept is in everything. And it's always made up, let me say one more time, of an outer shell, an outer physicality, so to speak, and the inner workings. In this, whether you're talking about the primordial Adam caveman, or as Paul called the body of Christ, the body of Elohim, all right, whether you are talking about angels, whether you're talking about men, or whether you're, whatever world this is the same principle. It never changes. So let me get back to this. The soul of life needs the physical body to reveal its ability to animate, and the body needs the soul to be alive. See, they really work together, because this is if I didn't have a soul life in my body, I would be dead. I mean, that's the whole point. My body would just be a lump of clay, and it would have no animation, and it would just sit there, and then eventually it's just going to decay. So especially in this one, the body and the soul, especially of human, are fused together. And this is all, and you can't have really one without the other. All right. So this is an important principle. It is a mutual two-way road that they need each other. But the entire image and essence, the existence of reality, is life, and life is the existence of reality. So this is what all our projects, that the living El, this is who we worship, this is who we are connected to, this is our root system. And if you don't want to be in total and like cut off, which is what is going to happen, cut off, there's a whole there's a way to quote unquote get grafted back into this tree of life, all right, so that you can have this life go with you, so to speak, into the next life. All right. So, but the problem is, there is a problem in this. Houston, we do have a problem, but let me establish that the reality is a reflection of life, and life is the only reality, and there is really nothing else. Hence, the underlying reality is not physical, it's not atoms, it's not subatomic particles, it's not energy, things. It is life. And this life is the light of men. And this life is the Father, and it is in the Son. And he has given us this life, which is called eternal life. All right? Life is the underlying reality. This life originates from God. He is life, and it's absolutely true. It is absolutely real, and it's absolutely his form. When he made, it is the underlying reality of all essence. I've said all this, all right? So it is more real and more fundamental than the physical. It is the underlying essence of everything. And now, this is where we get into this. So we've established that. So now, Houston, we have a problem. So now we have this tree of life, and we have this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, all right? And this is all I've been through, this allegorical information or ways of explaining to us, like what happened, how did the whole system quote unquote get a kink in it, how did there get to be evil or a virus in this. Now, but the entire, okay, I think I've said all that on that kind of a principle, but this is even more interesting, because there's these words, I've been tracking them and trying to find them when you read a lot of ancient texts. It says that they use these words, earth, air, wind, and fire. There was something that has been bothering me for years, because it talks about there's four, in the translations are bad, like in the New Testament verse, it's called the four corners of the earth, you have the four foundations, you have the four winds of heaven. There's a lot of things with four in it. And they didn't seem to always be the same. And so what I have to say, there is, again, when you understand this principle, and let me take this apart so I can always use this, where you have a body, and you have the inner workings, the soul. They have to always, see, angels have bodies. This is what, Paul, when he talks about there's, not all flesh, and another word for body is flesh, all right? And he says, not all flesh is the same. There is celestial flesh, meaning there's angelic flesh, and there is terrestrial. Our body is different. So when you get into different worlds or different domains. There's different kinds of bodies. It looks different, but the principle is exactly the same. So once we've established that everything has a body and a soul. So it's really just the program and then what is inside making the program be what it is. So before we begin explaining, I must tell you that just as parts of the constellation are called, and see, this is where a lot of the language is used, and I'm not going to pack it, but I want you to just listen to this paragraph I have. Because the way our Bible is written, this is the concept it's talking about. All right. And one of the most primary things that the text is talking about is this concept of Adam came of the primordial man, or this is called just the whole creation of Elohim, soup to nuts, visible and invisible. It's likened in the text. The symbolic picture, our text, is of a body. All right, this is why. All right, this is I didn't write the text. I didn't pick that analogy, but this is the analogy that El picked and that he gave to the prophets, and the words used always correspond. All right, this is what's important to understand. So before we begin explaining, we must tell you that just as parts of the constellations, see, heavenly bodies, are called eye or ear or hand or foot, or that Yahweh is described as having hands and feet and eyes and speak. That's not necessarily what's going on. It's just that there's no other better way to explain it, that our finite minds can begin to grasp this. I've been through this. But are not real eyes, ears, hands, or feet, but they are only names, symbols, and abstractions. So you must know that above these concepts, which are called now water, fire, wind, and earth, this is what the names that were given to the knowledge of the fundamental subsets of this concept of body and soul. All right, it's very linear. That's what I'm trying to say. It just progresses. It makes sense. It's not chaotic. It's very structured and structural. So these words, water, fire, wind, and earth. So it took me for, what are they talking about? All right. So this is where I have finally gotten down to understanding here. Let me just get my last little. All right. And perish the thought that those elements should bear any similarities to ours. So I've said this before. We're not talking about real fire. We're not talking about the fire I see. These words are used in such a symbolic and abstract way. All right. But instead, they are awesome heavenly pathways that are called this because of certain qualities these names possess. But they're not like the earthly ones. See, if you're going to go, like I said, from this smallest, let's do this one, from the tiniest, the Holy of Holies, into all the way physicality, how are you going to do that? You got to have paths. You got to have root systems. This is why the tree is a good analogy. All right. So there are pathways to Elohim. What the heck? Sorry about that. There are pathways to Elohim, all right? And this is what the root system, this is what it's talking about. But they are not like the earthly ones. He makes his messengers the winds, his ministers glowing fire. These are talking about angelic beings that have a body and a soul that are likened to winds and to fire, and that move up and down along these pathways that he has created. Don't ever think that what we are being spoken of is actually wind or fire, but their names reflect the essence of their character. All right. Now, this is why there are two sets of four. There is the set of the, let's say, the soul or the inner programs. There's a set of programs that are referred to that run the inner soul life workings of all living things. And then there is the actual laws or foundations of the physicalities. So there's four. So again, when you get into the four levels of soul life, you always have, again, this principle of a body and a soul. And that's what the words are trying to tell us. And a lot of times that's why it takes me trying to figure out, well, which one are they talking about and how it all. So, but I want to talk for a second. I want to bring this home I want to give my midrash, so to speak, of this whole concept, because in another way of saying this, see, so in our Bible, the earth, air, wind, and fire is basically analogous to 4 states of energy. All right, now, it isn't that there isn't energy or some properties in the world like this. It's just that they're not, energy is not the same thing as life. It's just a manifestation of a property of this quote unquote life. So there are 4 states of energy, and it relates to this concept of solid, liquid, gas, and raw or energy or materiality. Modern science has combined them with what doesn't matter. E equals mc squared, but as you'll see, the different spiritual powers really require them to be separated. So we're going to separately categorize. So we have to go in and unpack solid, liquid, gas, and energy, the same thing as earth, wind, fire, and water. This is what they're talking about. And this is all relating to soul life, to how the different levels of the programs in every living thing that finally end up in some kind of manifestation of physicality you can see. So a rock, what I'm telling you is there are 4 levels of soul life in a rock. Who knew? This explains a lot. So anyways, the battle, let's just go back to this in my quote unquote, like I was going to say, my midrash. So we do have a problem. Let me read from Galatians, because there's a certain construct. So now that we've I've sort of unpacked this whole huge concept. I can't do this in an hour. There is a problem, all right? And it is called evil, or it's called, I mean, has let me say, this is good. There's the left side and the right side of how this construct has been put together and how the different parts of it function and relate to each other. So we have flesh and we have spirit, another way. So I say, in other words, uses this is flesh. The outside of this thing is the carnal nature, is the fleshly nature, is the body. The inner part is the soul, is the spirit, is the animation, is the vivifying, the part that gives the life that gives it its animation. All right. So these are all words kind of describing these different states of being. Now, in Galatians 5:17, and this is what Paul is referring to. Let me just get there really quick. I could have had this. Galatians 5:17, he says, okay, this is his whole point. It is spirit and it is flesh, and they war against each other. There is a war. There is a war going on between the body and the flesh. No, I said that, between the body and the soul. There's a war in between heaven and earth. This is what a lot of this language is saying. Let me say the most fundamental word. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. What he is telling you, this is the most fundamental verse he is telling you that everything he made, heaven, which is the inside, let's get this right. Heaven, which is the inside part, and earth, which is the outside part. There is a visible and there is an invisible to everything. He made heaven and he made earth. That is one of the most fundamental understandings in getting these code words unpacked. So Paul says, so I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature. For the sinful nature desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the sinful nature. They are in conflict with each other, so that you do not do what you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now, I want to say right here, because I've unpacked this, Paul is not talking about like Torah law. He's talking about the law of sin and death that came upon mankind when this problem in the garden between the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil happened, came down. All right? That's what he's talking about. The curses versus life, there's so much theology and there's so much midrashic understanding in all of this, but let me just stick with this. There's 2 natures to man. You have his carnal, we have an outside fleshly body, carnal set portion of us, like I said, and we have the inner, we have the soul and the spirit. And unfortunately, right now, they're at war with each other, right? This is what it's talking. There's a mixing of good and evil in everyone, and this is what Paul's talking about. These two natures of man were deliberately, well, let me put it this way, the bigger picture. Because Elohim knows the beginning from the end, and because he makes all things work together for good, he knew what was going to come down in the garden. He'd already had everything, soup to nuts, figured out of how perfect bliss state, problem state, back to bliss state, how he was going to do this. All right. So this is, but we're in the middle part, which is problem state. Okay. We came from the bliss state. We want to go back to the bliss state. This is what it's all saying. But in this construct, which he foreknew, he gave us, this is why he's talking about, there's the right side and the left side. We have the carnal nature and the fleshly nature. We have the fleshly nature and the spiritual, our soul life, our spiritual nature. They're at war with each other, basically, inside of us, because this happened just in Adam, all right? This is why I'm saying this is our problem in the creation. That's why it says that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth, waiting for the redemption of the son of the, I think it's the sons of man. I can't remember how it goes, but you know what I'm saying? The rest of creation is waiting for us to get our act, to get fix this problem, because they are also under the cloud, the shadow, the burden of this virus problem. All right. So once we get our act together and get our problems fixed, all of creation will get out from under the weight and the burden of our sin. All right. So but in the middle, Elohim gave us what is called our free will. So the construct is such that you have these two natures. Everyone has it. It's called the evil inclination, the yetzer. What do they call it? There's a word in Hebrew for it. I think it's the yetzer something. It'll come to me in the writings. And you have your free will. So Paul is saying, wretched man that I am. You know, the things that I should do, I don't do. And the things that I want to do, I don't. Because this is the battle. But praise, this is the point. Praise God, Elohim, that through Yeshua, we now have peace. We absolutely have a way to beat this thing. This is the whole story of why he came. Remember, because he has made a way. And actually, there's so much deep stuff in this, I can't say. It isn't like he made this way for the Gentiles, everybody else that was not, Torah keeping, quote unquote, Torah, really getting it through being Torah observant. Okay. But this free will, now, the primacy, this is understand. So this primacy desire is towards the good inclination. We are made, and we want to please Elohim. This is the, in man is the desire to do what is right. All right. But for the body, its primary desire is to do what's evil. Now, they use the word evil in the sense, not, like we need to kind of evil a little bit, just a little bit, in the sense of, because it's talking about gratifying the desires of the sinful nature. All right. We are not animals. We do not live according to our base nature. We have a higher nature. So in other words, this is what I wanted to unpack, because we are in the image, we are made in the image and the likeness of Elohim. What that means is our body and our soul is made in the image of that body and quote unquote of Elohim. Now, not that I'm saying that Elohim has a body, okay? These are abstract concepts. But see, it's so deep. Just trust me on that one, because see, Elohim, he needs to kind of make this in a way that we can relate to him, because he's pure spirit and pure essence. How are you going to relate? All right. Ultimately, he has created things that are vehicles, that are pathways, that are ways in which we can understand his most sublime and perfect nature and essence. But for the body, its primary desire is to the evil inclination, because both are from the side of physicality, and they are closer to each other. It is because of this that there is a battle between the physicality and the soul. Because since the soul cannot do, all right, this is what mitzvah, except through the body, which tends towards the evil inclination, because of this, there is great difficulty to subjugate it. That's what Paul is saying. He says, and the works of this sinful nature, the works of the flesh, it's obvious, sexual immorality, hatred, witchcraft, discord, jealousy, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, and drunkenness, orgy, whatever. All right, every evil word. This base nature of man, this physicality we have, which does not have in and of itself, it does not have the programs that run according to a higher standard, of which Elohim is, of justice and mercy. It looks like, and this is why if you really study at the animal kingdom, it looks just like the animal kingdom. We war and devour each other, just like animals do half the time. All right, this is the point. All right, animals, and there's a big, all right, so this is called the evil inclination. All right, now, if you will be a man of valor, it says, emerging from the battle victorious in all fronts. Right, there's verses that talks about how we need to become a quote unquote a perfect man, and it's called the Adam Ha-Shalom, a whole or a perfect man, a man who is able to check and to do not according to the lusts of the evil inclination, but according to the world to come. They use it there, the world to come, according to the higher world, the higher essence and being of Elohim, which is justice and mercy, which is an intellectual. See, this again. Oh, I thought I could do this so simplistic, but I can't. In other words, so the point is that the only way to get victory, or what we need to do, or let me say this, the whole construct, the whole simulation, the whole holograph, the whole thing with the left side and the right side, with this duality that goes inside of mankind, the things that I would do and should do, and the things that I actually do, and they're in conflict with each other. And I do have choice. Believe me, everything you do, you choose to do. There's no victim in this thing per se. Of course, then you get into the whole justice of Elohim. And yeah, I mean, circumstances can really make it tough sometimes. But this whole construct, and then he's given us the free will. That's the whole construct, all right? And he is taking advantage of the quote-unquote fall to give everyone a chance to make a decision for good, to let their actions, their words, their deeds, and their thoughts be for good. All right, fundamental principle, and then there will be quote unquote rewards at the end for how good you did your good. All right, this is a fundamental principle. Now, the thing this is where I want to jump in to get into the next level. But I want to say the primary desire is towards, again, the evil is towards the good inclination. And the problem is the good inclination in us and the evil inclination are so close. That's why there's such a battle. There's not like this huge gulf between the two. I mean, think about it. When you're thinking of something, I mean, your thoughts, they're not far away from you. If you're full of rage and anger about something, and right behind that is this concept, well, just let it go, just blow it off, just move on. These concepts, we can hear this battle in our head. It says the battle is in the mind. You can hear them. They're not far apart from each other, all right? The question is, which angel, the good angel, the bad angel, which side, the side of good, are you going to make your decision that is going to be your actions, which is what Yeshua said, for out of the heart come the issues of life. You have to decide. Now, so now that we have impact the concept of this, the construct, all right? And I just want to throw this one thing in there, because what's really interesting in all this, because fundamentally, again, we are talking about life, chaim, l'chaim, right? The phrase, to life. This is what the famous Jews always, to life, right? To l'chaim. This is an interesting point, because it says that we're going to shine like lights in the firmament, okay? And light and life are very, very closely related in concepts. But in the olam haba, which is in the world to come, there is no darkness of the physical world concealing the eternal light. Because how do I explain this? Right now, this is another way they explain it, is that this body is dark, so to speak. My skin is covering over my mind and my actions, which in a way is a real blessing to us. Because if they put all of our thoughts, if somebody put on on a super screen above us and everybody could read everything we were thinking. So, I mean, how embarrassing would that be? So in a lot of ways, Elohim had a mercy when he covered Adam and Eve with skins. Again, and this is insert a layer of physicality, all right? Because with their fallen nature, there's so many levels to this thing. But let's just stick with what I want to say. Therefore, it shines with its true and pure light, because Elohim ultimately has no body. He's pure. He's complete essence. There's no shadow, which is another way of the bodies. They're called the klippas. They're called the garments. All right. This is the concept. There's so many words that describe these concepts. All right. But this light is not equal for every person. It says, rather, for each person, his soul will shine with a different light. In clarity and intensity. And this is according to how much he purified himself and strove to remove all the things which conceal this light here in this world. So too he will rejoice to see the radiance of his soul shining accordingly. See, this is why it's a very important principle. This is the point. We are supposed to strip off. We're supposed to get rid of. We're supposed to shed, the garments are filthy rags, all right? Our physicalities, the things that we do in thought, word, deed, and action that vilify and create death, and our lower energy things that keep the light, our light, from truly shining brightly. These are all the concepts that are being in these words. And literally, see, what I'm trying to say, there's a real physics to this. See, what I'm trying to tell people is there are physics to our Bible that are just mind-blowing, all right? And this is important, that your light, you're going to shine, so to speak, when it's all said and done, according to how much you cleanse, we're able to purify, we're able to become that perfect man. I guess I didn't finish that statement. The perfect mature man is a man who really finally gets the battle under control. And through Yeshua, this is now for us. We have the ability, there's going to be no excuse for winning this victory, because he won it for us. Now, a lot of stuff you have to work out your salvation. It's not like a little poof, you get saved. This is what the bigness, no, you go down to the altar, you say your little prayer and it's done. You're a completely shining bright, star in the world. And you're going to shine as brightly as anybody else. No, that's not the way it works. You have to work out your salvation. You actually have to do change. You have to put a little effort into this thing. All right. You have to do Torah, learn Torah, do Torah, begin to obey. That's why it says without obedience and without holiness, no one's going to see the Lord. You can't be bringing your filthy, this is the point, garments, rags to heaven. It's just not going to fly. All right. Heaven's too pure for all that. All right. So if you want to be in the high heavens, if you want to be shining brightly right up there, you better make all the effort that you can. And this is the whole point of the Midrash. Get your act together while you have time. Put your priorities straight. All right. The things of this world are passing away. See, it's so easy to start preaching on and giving on these concepts. All right. But I want to unpack. I'm trying to unpack the sod level of understanding. All right. So the point is, you will shine. Okay. Now, how is this whole concept flushed out in our text? Because it is. Let's go to another verse, Isaiah 43. I was telling you that words are so important. Every Hebrew word has so much packed into it. It's so meaty, down to what its letter, its grammatica. Then you put the three letter roots together, and then you pack stuff on one end and pack stuff on the other end. It's amazing how much like I was saying, the word Bereshith in Genesis, with beginning, Elohim made the heavens. There are 70 midrashic levels of understanding, or permutations, or things that you got in that one word. I mean, I'm telling you, people. All right. We've been sold a bill of goods to think that the things in this world can even compare to unpacking Torah. Oh my gosh. All right. Isaiah 43:1. Okay. It says, now this is what Elohim said. And this we're talking about El, the living El. All right. Created you, O Jacob, Yaakov. He formed you, O Israel, for I have redeemed you and have summoned you by name. Oh, I guess I didn't get my full, there's another verse that talks. Oh, shoot. I looked it up really quickly. And there's another verse that says that he created, he formed, and he made the man. All right. This is all of us. We have been created, we have been formed, and we have been made in Elohim with this living El. All right. What I'm trying to say is those three are three levels, and they're not the same. Create is a different Hebrew word, formed is a different Hebrew word, and made is a different Hebrew word. And then you have the final word, which would be Yad He, Vod He, whichever word you want to use for Elohim at this point. But let's stick with the living. He, he is the living El, all right? So you have four levels, all right? And actually, and then, let me give this, so I'm going to unpack these four levels, which before I was saying the four levels relate to, again, it's a very systematic theology of the body parts, the parts that are visible in all of creation, and the inner workings, okay? The soul life, the animations, the programs, the invisible parts that are on the inside, making that, because I'll tell you what, this is what the ancients did, this is what I'm saying, the constellations, this is the whole point, the Mazra, the whole word for this really is mazals. The different things have different levels of this, of made, formed, and created, have different mazals influences in everything. And not all mazal is the same, but there is a mazal there of the constellations. And the constellations, this is the whole point. This really explains the ancient world with all of the quote unquote gods, the other Elohims and Saturn and Jupiter, and what they're talking about when they use these symbolic words and they relate them to planets. The planets that are closest to us are like bodies. They're called the heavenly bodies. That's a part of this thing that we can see. There are these bodies, these heavenly bodies have bodies. They have a physicality. I mean, look at it. The sun, the moon, they have a physicality. You can see them. But they are full of programs that are running through them, that come from actually higher levels that are their influences, that are like the soul life animating them. That's the whole principle. And that is absolutely true. And science is finally figuring all this out. So what I want to say, we're back here to I'm going to unpack the four levels of soul life. Let's just stick with the four levels of soul life, or the physicality attached to the different soul levels, all right? Because this really helped me with one thing that I was trying to figure out. And this is, there's a big hot debate going on today. Oh my God. Some people, the role of meat eating, all right, in the human diet, and animals. There's people see, because we don't really understand the difference between between us, Adam, number 127 in your Strongs, and a behemoth, which is an animal. They're not the same. All right. So to equate us, say we are animals. I mean, this is what the secular you are absolutely, first of all, shame on you for denying your Elohim, your living El. All right. And I'm not going to preach. I'm going to get to this. All right. Ever heard the expression animal, mineral, or vegetable? Play that game when you were a kid, right? Animal, mineral, or vegetable. They are kingdoms. So the way it works is there's mineral, there's vegetable, there's animal, and there's man. And then above man, there's really a fifth. Really, there's five to this thing. That's why, but four, this is why numbers are so interesting. The fifth one, which is En Sof, which is really Elohim, which is the omnipotent, omnipresence. You know, all right, he is Adonai Eloheinu, Yahweh Elohim. What are you going to say? All right, but he created a cosmos that we can know and we can understand and we can interface with, and we can search out. But it is made up of different levels. And again, the levels are you have mineral, you have vegetable, you have animal, and you have man. All right. The way it works is, another way it says, is the mineral kingdom. See, this is why minerals and are so important in the Bible. There really is a kingdom. There really is a quote unquote, a body, and there is a soul life in this, I don't even know how to describe it. This level of, it's called domain. It is the silent. It is in rocks and minerals. That's why, this level, I don't know how to explain this level per se, except rocks and minerals, is the lowest, the densest, the most primary, because actually what you're going to find out, the whole point of I say this is because, man, we are made up of every single one of these levels. So we've lost the concept. We know we're kind of like an animal, so we kind of can do the animal and the man thing, but we don't really understand that we are also have the programs running in us of the vegetable kingdom and the mineral kingdom. All right, these are all, and then all of these together, these make what are called the 4 foundations, which make up physicality. And so when Adam was made from the dust of the earth, like I've said this 100, he's not talking about dirt. It is talking about all of these levels of physicality that go into making our programs, making our visible soul life and our invisible soul life and our visible body. All right. I'm just taking my time here. So this is a whole level that is part of the story. Then there had what they call the zemochos. I have no idea how to pronounce these. So zemochos level, which is the growing level. All right. This is plants. Plants are a perfect example of this whole cosmology I'm talking about. You plant a seed puts in roots. That's why plants have, in the Bible, there's so much analogy, called the tree of life, even in explaining this whole this whole system from soup to nuts, okay? Because plants, in their whole growingness, from planting the seed in the ground, which it puts roots, it grows up through the surface, boom, it pops up, it's into physicality, you can see it, and then it grows up, it's got a huge torso, a stem, the trunk of the tree, and then it grows into its branches, and then it produces its fruit, its flowers, and then it produces its fruits. That in and of itself, that's a huge, but all right, one level of solar. So then you have the behemoths, which is where you really get the word behemoth from. All right, you get into the animal. This is finally, in this whole story of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 1, is following this whole progression. He's telling you how he made these whole foundations of soul and body, of heaven and earth, the 4 of them. And when you get down to, I think it's on the 5th day or the 4th, I think it's the 5th day, when he creates finally the living souls. Really, now you have animated, because the thing about a rock and the thing about a plant is they are not animated. They don't have the nefesh level of soul life, all right? They can't move around. You ever see a plant dig up its roots and move somewhere else in the garden because it doesn't like its neighbor? What doesn't happen, all right? But animals can do this. All right, and this is really, and it's even the whole story of Abraham. There's so many where Abraham plucked himself up by his roots, everything, and he moved to another place in the garden, in the field, whatever, all right? Now, so you have this whole level, which is called the nefesh, all right? This is where we begin into, which means soul, and it's paired with the word living soul. So this living, this life now that is in everything, this, the atom of life, which is really life, which is really El, all right, is in everything. And then the last one is the metabatis. I'll have to do better on these words, and because these are more of the concepts that the rabbis would have used for the same thing. It's called the speaking soul. Remember, Adam is the only one who speaks in the sense of having intelligibly. So the speaking soul is the soul part of us that we have that separates us from all the other levels. All right, the rocks, the plants, the animals do not have this quote unquote speaking soul. It is the intellectual soul. It is the part of us that is really made finally in the image of Elohim. because he said, this is the whole point, when he said, let there be light. Speaking is the most highest level of creation that there is. All right. Now, this level, what I'm talking about, these are all, I'm talking about the physicality, so to speak, of these levels of soul life. All right. Like I said, let's start with this. You start with something, this is, let's just say this is El, this is the Holy of Holies. And, everything fits. It just fits like a hand, all the different levels of soul life, whether it's a mineral, but we are made up, and this is why I wanted to say this last thing. The vegetative life, somach, such as trees and grasses, has a soul. Oh, it's so deep because, again, but this is why even it's so important, like on every levels, why wearing linen. Why they see the impure, this is why I'm not mixing, keeping everything pure, keeping everything in its categories, where you don't mix things, This is why the creation before the flood got completely out of hand. They were just taken from all different parts of they were just making stuff up. You talk about making stuff up? This is a whole story of mythology. They were just making up, re-engineering, remaking the whole, which is what we're starting to do today. So with all these blends, you can just, on every level of fabrics, on everything, this is why wearing pure, clean, unmixed garments would even be important. Where wearing linen would be important. All right, so I can't really flush that out, but this is beginning. I hope I've been hearing like why some of this stuff. What is the foundation, the background of some of these things that we're encountering in our text? Now, I've been talking about levels of physicality that are part of making up the garments, the bodies. And what happens in this thing, what I wanted to say is, remember, like every garment, everything that's made fits into the next level that's made. So it's contained in everything. That's why, like I said, the real tiniest particle of life is called El. It's called the living El, is life. All right. And it is in everything. All right. I mean, rocks are alive, believe it or not. And I'm using that for that category. All right. So now we get into another whole concept of the programs that are operating the invisible parts of everything. And this is where, so when it talks about, he comes with the four winds of heaven versus the four foundations or the four corners. This is where we're talking about the visible and an invisibility that is in everything. All right. Now, and there's really 5 levels, like I said, of everything, because the highest level is just Elohim, but it says no, I can't even begin to unpack that one per se. What we can know is the worlds of what he has created that we can know. And there is words for this. All right. This is why all the systematic, this is why you need a Kabbalah. You need text to explain these concepts. All right. You cannot carry all this knowledge. You cannot put everything into one text and carry it in the church. This is why we have so many writings that go deeper and deeper in explaining and unpacking and flushing out these deeper realities. All right. So the first level we have is called the nefesh, and these are the different souls. So we have all 4 levels of all of these levels. An animal does not have the speaking part of the soul life, physicality, all right? Next to, under that, the plants do not have what animals have, which is living change, which is animation. To move, plants grow. The rocks below them don't have the ability to grow or morph or change their shape. So I hope this is all kind of making sense. So the first level that we encounter, especially in us, it is called our nefesh, soul life. This is we share this in common with the animals. Animals have a nefesh, all right? But that's all we have. So let's see, on the lowest level, and our body and our nefesh are actually like glued together. So like I said, if I ever lost my nefesh, when I lose my soul, my body dies. All right. And it's the same thing for an animal. If an animal gets killed and it loses its nefesh, soul life, its animating life force, it dies. All right? So this nefesh is what is basically in us fallen. This is what I'm trying to go at before. It is in our nefesh that we have this battle of the good inclination and the bad inclination. And I'm not even going to unpack. I've started unpacking the tree of knowledge and the good. When those things, when Eve, ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it was a mixing of soul lives that never should have happened, which flipped this thing around. All right. So now the most predominant drive or mazal in us is our nefesh. All right. So I have to work to overcome it. And praise Yahweh, the three Yeshua. Now, the next one above that is a ruach. Animals do not have ruach soul. This is now called the spirit. That's why ruach is translated as spirit. This is a world of formation. This is a beginning of a soul life now, a beginning of a program. It's called our ruach, our spirit, that can help us connect. This is now this is what separates us from the rest of the pack, the man, the Adam. We have ruach. We have a spirit in us that is made in the image and the likeness of Elohim. After this, we have what is called, and between the ruach and the neshama, the thing about the spirit is it can go up or it can go down on this ladder. All right. Ruach can be, this spirit, ruach in us can be manifested in very base ways. All right. Carnality. How to explain it? So, or it can be elevated and begin to give hints and begin to give expressions of our creator Elohim. All right. So the ruach is a really interesting kind of vibrational level, which it can go up or it can go down. It can be degraded or it can be elevated. And it's the ruach of us, the spirit, that is the first, that gives us a hint that, wow, there's something going on more than meets the eye. See, this is what animals this is why it's called instinct. They're kind of programmed to a certain extent. They react to their circumstances. They got mazals that make them mate in certain seasons, all these things. But it is the ruach in man that begins to make the difference. We're like, wow, I can think a little deeper, and consequently, I can make choices that will have larger ramifications, and your free will is in this ruach. All right. Next, after that, you come into this world of neshama, and this is what is called the breath. So that with Adam, when he created this Adam with all these different, the body levels, so to speak, the levels of physicality, all the parts of this, and the soul life, and then the final thing is he breathed into Adam the breath of life. This is the world of creation. This is when he created Adam. He breathed into him his neshama, which was the breath of life, which really was the beginning of like the eternal life, the beginning of such a high level of Elohim. But this is where between the ruach and the neshama, this is sort of where it all happened. Between the ruach, the neshama, and the last level of soul life, what I'm trying to say is the chaya, which is the living El. This is why it says, he told Adam, the day you eat of that, what happened? You're going to die, because now you've mixed programs, so to speak. There's no life in this, what your new mixture is, what you guys just did. There's no life. It's not going to go on forever. You're going to die. See, these are the concepts. And there's such physics. There's such truth behind all this. But it is in the neshama of man, and then we finally, and this is where we quote unquote, this is the born again. You receive this neshama, this breath, this wind of Elohim, this higher level. We refer to the air, the heavens. You are really getting out of physicality. Let me tell you what this is. You are really getting into the stratosphere here. You are really, your light is starting to shine. You are starting to live. You're getting control of the thing. You are climbing the ladder. You are becoming a saint. You are definitely cleansing yourself of all of the klipoth, the evil inclinations, the parts, the filthy rags. This is what they're talking about, till finally we get into the place of Atzilut, which is the world of Chaim, of living, where El is the living El. We get this, we finally will become into a place, again, of bliss, of living forever in a perfect state, with all the programs are fixed, everything is just a great glory, and you're going to shine forever. What I have to, these words, so you have to understand the different levels. You have to understand what is being represented and what is going on in each level, how the fall fits in between the Ruach, between the carnal nature, which is bonded to the body, the nefesh, soul life of man, which is like an animal's, and activating your Ruach. See, a lot of people, they never even activate their Ruach. They might get a glimpse once in a while that, yeah, I guess there's more to life. But they're so central. They're so into it. Oh, full. Let's just eat another bag of chips about it. Who cares, It's the Ruach that begins the journey up or down. And it's your neshama, the breath of life, when you really, this is what he gives to the true saint, the true believer who's really seeking it. He will get you. I mean, it's like, this is where he says he takes his hand, he reaches out, and he just lifts you up. Now, you're going up, and there's no getting, if you stay, you're going to end up shining, again, right up there in the highest heaven with the living El, in the absolute level. So this is what it's talking about. All right. It to me is beautiful. It makes sense. We can begin to see where we are, what we need to do. This is the whole point of Torah. It's our instructions. It will teach us. And now we're getting back to my blog. What I would hope people, and I can start to really flush this out a little more. I've been building a case. If you check it out, a 1, 2, and a 3. And this information has all been very systematically categorized by our text writers, all right? And so when you're talking about, this is why the sod level is so, it's a lot of the information, it's deeper, it's more hidden. It's because it's not like on purpose. These are deeper understandings. Like, you can't be telling this stuff to a child. They're going to look at you like, what are you talking about? Just give me my bottle. Okay. And even in the stages of our growth from a child, from a baby to a child, to a young man, to adult, that's what a lot of those verses, you grow in this wisdom and understanding. All right. So I'm just going to end it all there. I hope it blessed you. I'm going to begin to really get deeper, flush this out. We're going to make sense of it all. And it is going to, hold on, it is going to elevate us and help us to change the world. So, shalom, may Yeshua HaMashiach truly get the breath of life, get the new birth that is through him, through his name.